Hey everybody! Wow, welcome to day six. Day six of 31 days of favor. Wow, we having so much fun. I don't know about you, but I am, and we are just unpacking revelation after revelation inside of each chapter of the book of Proverbs. One of the things that you will hear me say, or you will have heard me say, is that wisdom has friends. And what I decided to do in day six is that I wanted to bring into the mix one of my closest friends, a brother from another mother. I think we knew each other for about over 10 years now, over 15, close to 15 years, right?
Yeah,
Probably more than that.
more than that, maybe 20
Yeah, way longer than that. We know each other for a long time.
teenagers.
Yeah, and it's amazing how, right now he's one of the trustees at H4G Church. He sits on our finance team, and he's here with me because he is one of the wisest people that I know, specifically in regards to the area of finances. And in Proverbs 6, we're going to give you guys a little secret inside of the Proverbs that Solomon discusses about finances. And one of the most, I feel like one of the current mistakes that I see a lot of people make when it comes to their finances is lending money to people without any principle behind that. And so what I want to do in this day is that I want to go into we're just going to read the first three verses, and Ameer and I, we're going to have a little conversation about that. All right. So I want you to just read with me real quick. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 1. I'm only going to read the first three verses for now, and then we're going to pick up from there. And so in verse 1, it says, "My son, if you become surety for your friend, if you have shaken hands and pledged for a stranger, you are snared by the words of your mouth. You are taken by the words of your mouth. So do this, my son, and deliver yourself, for you have come into the hand of your friend. Go and humble yourself, plead with your friend, give no sleep to your eyes, nor slumber to your eyelids. Deliver yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, and like a bird from the hand of the fowler." All right. Now, at first glance, you might read that, and you might be like, "Well, what does it have to do with finances, and what does it have to do with money?" But when you go back to verse 1, you see a word there called surety. Surety. Now, it's not a word that we use a lot today, at least in where I come from. But what a surety is to become a guarantor for someone, or a sponsor, or in more plain terms that we use today, a cosigner. So literally it's to take up somebody else's debt, someone else's financial obligation or responsibility. It's to become a co-signer for someone. Now, Ameer, I know you have a little history working in a bank, and some other stuff like that. Like, tell me some of the experiences you learned about people becoming co-signers for people, and how's that not always the wisest thing to do?
Well, in the negative sense, co-signing, I've come across experiences where people will co-sign and they'll just do it for a friend or a loved one, and the person that they're co-signing for would not really, how can I say, would not really have the passion or the care like the person that is co-signing them.
So it's like if somebody wanted
right. So if you come to me and say you want me to be a co-signer, you won't really care for what you're asking for a loan like I would for my own finance, right? So I've seen people get abused in many ways, like just financially.
Right. So what's some of the things that people ask other people to be guarantors for them or co-signers for?
Loans, credit cards, auto loans, not really mortgages, because mortgages, but mostly auto
I've seen
loans.
that as
Yeah.
well.
But mostly I've come across a lot of auto loans. That's like the biggest one.
Yeah.
Biggest one, auto loans, which I feel like is one of the biggest mistakes anyone can make, because when you co-sign, when you give yourself permission, you're saying essentially that I'm taking on this responsibility to pay for this vehicle. Now, if I put my name on this document saying that I'm gonna be the guarantor for this, that means if the person that applies for the vehicle decides I don't want to make this payment anymore, it now can affect my credit in a negative sense.
Right.
And that's not using wisdom. A lot of times we do it for friends, our partners, because we feel like we're trying to help them. But in reality, we're really not helping them.
Right.
Well, we're helping them, but we're not helping ourselves.
Not helping yourself.
Yeah,
So it hinders you from actually being a good steward over your own.
So it actually goes
finances.
back to, I'm sorry, it actually goes back to because you're not helping, if you're not good for yourself, you can't be good for anybody else.
Right.
So if you damage your credit, you damage your good name, then you can't be of help to anybody.
Wow.
So we have to remember, using wisdom is making good judgment, and that means that we have to be a good steward over what we have.
So what motivates a person to be willing to do something like that? Like you said, I've worked so hard to build up an 800 credit score for myself. And then someone else who has a 500 credit score then says, hey, can you co-sign for me to get this car or to help me purchase this house or whatever the case may be. Now the Proverbs actually instructs us, according to this verse, to actually tells us not to do it. And for the people that I know who got involved in that, they were guilted into making that decision from, let's say, a loved one or a relative, or maybe somebody in a relationship with, and will guilt them into saying, hey, I thought you were supposed to be a good Christian. And it will make people feel guilty about not helping them if they didn't use what they had because they were in a bad position. So what's the connection between being a good Christian and being a wise person? Is the two the same, or is it wrong for a Christian not to be able to help a person if they have the power to do it?
Well, being a good Christian is being wise, first of all. You cannot and you should not make just rash decisions, because you start off by asking a person, I worked so hard to get an 800 credit score, right?
Right.
And somebody with a 500 credit score is asking me to be a co-signer. There's a reason why they have a 500 credit score. Right. They were not good stewards over what they have, or they've damaged their name in a way where they make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a difference between someone who's starting off, and usually that's your kids or something like that, or someone coming fresh out of college. But if you're talking about a person that has financial history and they just did not make great decisions in their financial history, that's a red flag right there.
Right.
So you're not being a bad Christian by saying no, because you are not helping a person by indulging into their bad habits.
Right.
So because you're not financially responsible and I am, that does not give you the right to impose on my money or my good name or my credit.
Wow.
That's just not how it should work.
And you look at that, it says in the actual Proverbs, and I hope you guys are paying attention to this, because I know a lot of you that are watching can relate to this, or know somebody that has problems because of the fact that they tried to help somebody else with their credit or their good name, and then they got burned as a result of that. So let's nip that in the bud. All right, it's not being a bad Christian to be able to look after what you put in the work to build. Even Proverbs 6 verse 1, he says, if you've shaken hands and pledged for a stranger, again, shaking hands in a pledge just simply means I agree to do business, or I agree to make these decisions. But he says, don't shake hands and pledge for a stranger, or somebody you barely knows, and you talked about that. Sometimes I'll meet people, I know people who, become boyfriend and girlfriends, and then in 1 month, they're putting each other on each other's accounts.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or we're starting to share certain financial responsibilities and obligations. And he's like, you barely know the person. You've been in a relationship with them for 1 month. How are you getting this car in that person's name? And then you get burned as a result of that because you barely knew them. You are snared, you're trapped by the words of your own mouth. And so there's a lot of wisdom that is provided right here. And we're just only in the first two verses. But now, if we fast forward, Solomon begins to talk about the ant. And he says, go to the ant, you sluggard. Verse 6. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise, which having no captain, no overseer or ruler, provides her supplies in the summer, gathers her food in the harvest. And how long will you slumber, you sluggard, and when will you rise from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall your poverty come on you like a prowler, and your need like an armed man. So Solomon now goes back into the fact that, the lazy who may not have put in the work to be able to do like you said, work hard to get an 800 credit score or pay their bills on time. That requires work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it takes diligence. It takes effort to be able to build up your credibility, only to find someone who doesn't have the same work ethic and the same energy and the same drive to just come alongside and just want to reap the benefits of your hard work. And wisdom is actually instructing us that we have a responsibility to protect what we have built and to actually now encourage people who may not have the same work ethic to begin to develop their own. And I think you talked about something, the difference between enabling and helping people.
Oh yeah, like that. I see that a lot. Like when someone asks you for a loan, the first thing your heart will want you to do as a Christian is you want to help everybody, right? Yeah. But sometimes we actually enable a person when you know that they're not a good steward over their money, and you constantly give to them, because what happens is they become reliant on you now. Oh, okay, I could just squander this money. Right. I can go to pastor, he'll give me $30. Yeah. He'll give me $100. I can go to the church, they'll bail me out, right? But no, you're actually enabling the person, because now you're giving them that surety as to, oh, I could just continue to just dwell in my bad habits of finance. Yeah. So that's the one thing you do not want to do. You do not want to help people that can't help themselves. Wow. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. I got a few tips that I do personally. When people come to ask me for money, for example, I have a thing where I say I don't lend to people with the expectation of getting it back. Like if someone asks me to borrow money and I'm either I have the money to give it, I'll give it to them without expecting it to return, which also means if I need that money, I'm not lending it. Like you shouldn't lend money you need. Like people lend money and they're like, oh, I need it back by the end of the week.
Right.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Right? What I do is I create a budget for lending.
So you set out how much you're going to lend.
So I say to myself, okay, I'm going to set out this, I'm going to allocate this amount for the quarter or for the year. Yeah. And once I reach that, that's it. I don't care who comes to me. That's it.
That's good too.
So I don't get imposed on my finances.
Right.
And then I have to use wise decision and good judgment on who I give my money to.
True.
Because once I run out, then that's it. And then I could actually help somebody. Yeah. But if I squander my money on people that just ask me, then I wouldn't be of good help to somebody that might actually need.
Right. All right. So listen, this is the first 3 verses. I encourage you guys, dive into this chapter. Yeah, there's so much good stuff in here, but I think this is enough. I think we're going to come back on tomorrow and have another conversation around this. But until then, dig into chapter 6. Get wisdom, get understanding, and apply these principles. Share this with somebody who who might be having some trouble lending their money and not getting it back. Becoming co-signers with any and everybody. In 2020, we want to stop that. I want you to get wiser. I want you to get smarter, and I want you to find favor. So I'll see y'all tomorrow on day 7.